Hey, Saints and Patriots, Apostle Claver Kamal Imani of RagingElephantsRadio.com. I want to thank you for being to this session today of the Texas Nationalist Movement Legislative Agenda Workshop, getting prepared for the 2019 legislative session. A couple of things I want to remind you of before we get started today. As the conversation goes on with John, if you have a question, comment, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your computer screen. You can enter it there, and we have somebody that will moderate those questions, and I'll try to keep an eye on it and get those questions over to John. I think he'll be able to see them himself, actually. For future meetings, and I'll remind you at the end of the conversation today, for future meetings, be sure that you check your email, because for each individual presenter, for each individual session and panel, you are going to have a link specifically just for that one. And TNM is going to deliver that to you into your email inbox. All videos are going to be posted at tnm.me. That's the digital cyberspace headquarters for the Texas Nationalist Movement. Today's first guest is going to be John Griffing. He is actually the communications director of the Texas Nationalist Movement. John, where are you calling in from today, man?
Well, I am based in Georgetown, Texas, which is in the most conservative county, Williamson, in the state of Texas, next to the most liberal, crazy county, Travis, in the state of Texas. Keep Austin weird, keep Georgetown normal, you know?
There's a lot to be said about that, John. The
Loaded,
people
right?
Republic of Travis County, Moscow and the Colorado. It's great to have you here, man. It's been quite some time. We were talking before we came on, and you were saying that we officially, our first time we met was probably the 2014 convention up in Dallas.
Fort Worth there, yeah.
In Fort Worth, yeah, right. Demystifying the Texas Legislature. What's so mysterious about it?
Well, that's the thing, Claver. It's really unfortunate that guys like me even get paid to do things that average citizens could do if they just didn't think it was so scary or beyond them. There are a bunch of mini lobbyists running around in the shape of average citizens like you, me, and people that are just curious enough to ask a few simple questions can do more damage and or constructive good and influence policy even. I've had an impact directly on policy at the state and federal level, and these were just things I did on my spare time. And everyone's capable of it. They're not all capable of each individual aspect, you know, of the political process, but everybody can do something, and that's what I'd like to share today.
What's the source of the mystery? I would think that.
What is it for you? I mean, before you got involved like you are, you had to, you know, be a little curious, right?
Well, I think my situation was a little bit different, though, John. I mean, I kind of grew up in it, right?
Yeah,
my first political activism, I was like in third grade or something. Okay.
Yeah, I was a dork. You know, I knew the Constitution by heart when I was like 12. So I guess you and I are in the same boat.
Well, my parents were in politics. My father was in politics. Well, that means both of them were in politics. So I kind of grew. But you would think that
I'm sorry.
Where no, it was a wonderful experience growing up, man. To see my father politically active, running for office and things like that.
It
But
has
that's
its advantages, sure.
Did you? I would think that, and maybe it's a foolish assumption, but those who would want to get involved in citizen lobbying, let's
just call it, you know, their right as paying customers because they pay a lot.
But you would think that they would there would be no mystery to them, that they would be fluent in what it takes to get something done. But you're here to say that that's not necessarily the question. They may have to want to, but they don't know that.
Let me give you a simple elevator speech on this. Number one, most people are busy. They have jobs, they have lives, they have families, and they like to think that once they put somebody there that they vetted by doing a few Google searches and maybe going to a few meetings and reading up on them. They like to think that they can trust that person for the most part and kind of go back about their daily lives. Problem is, human nature is an erratic, dynamic thing. And there's an expiration date on every single human being that sets foot in a public office. Even if you or me were to go there, there'd be a time where our close confidants would have to come to us and say, hey, guys, time up. You've been in it too long. And that's just a fact of the human dynamic that we have in politics. It's part of the strength and weakness of democracy, right? So that's number one. And number two is, even if people are curious enough to get involved, they assume that it's a specialty. They stop thinking of themselves as paying customers. And by the way, you are one of the most expensive, people, we shell out like hundreds of thousands of dollars just individually with all the different hidden taxes we pay every year in the Lone Star State. And we're a low tax state, right? So I just think that a lot of folks on the number two side of things, they just really feel like it's beyond them. That it's got to be a formula somehow that they just can't know, and they probably should have gone to school for it. People don't realize how simple it is to walk in these offices and demand, politely, but demand meetings on issues of concern to them. They have the right contractually as citizens to actually do that. Think of it like a school. When you go to meet with your child's teachers, folks, I mean, do you ever question your right to see what they're learning? No, right? I mean, that's how I got involved really in Texas politics, was education advocacy, getting rid of that horrible curriculum called C-Scope. And we had to put a few people's, manhood in a skillet, but, they did it. And that's something that everyone can do. It doesn't take a me. It doesn't take a Daniel. It doesn't take an Apostle Claver. It doesn't. It takes just people being curious and having the patience to do a little reading.
John, it's as if you're saying it's not so much demystifying the Texas legislature. It's more like getting rid of the fear factor. Like it's some.
We're going to get to some specific mechanical. We'll talk about some specific mechanical things later on that are kind of hard to figure out. It's nice to know them when you start. But right now, I just wanted to focus on the kind of the things that typically serve as a barrier to people getting more involved. And that's really it. It's the sense that it's probably something they can't figure out or is too hard. And
you don't need a license. You don't have to go to school. You don't need any type of certification. You don't need any type of special permission. You're a citizen of Texas and a taxpayer. That's your license. That's your permit. Walk in there and talk to him.
Love or hate Alex Jones. I'm going to use him as a negative example right now. The kind of research you imagine he does for a show? Not much, right? It's kind of like, oh, here's some headlines. And then he starts talking. All right, well, I have a lot of respect for guys behind the microphone. I'm one, you're one. But I got to tell you, if you do less research than Alex Jones on some of these issues, you'll be more informed and more equipped to talk with your state lawmakers than news jockeys are behind a microphone. And that's something.
Do you find that those that you're interacting with, those that have a natural aspiration to do exactly what you're advocating for, get up to the Pink Dome or to the city hall or to the county courthouse, talk to their public servants, do you feel like they do have a fear factor?
A lot of them are feared. It's just the opposite. Once these Ginger Russell, I'll use Ginger because Ginger's a friend, and she worked with me on education a while back. Ginger pisses a lot of people off because she's so persistent, and she's just a curious mom who got a little bit more curious and started taking it to policymakers, and she had an impact. She was loud and she was persistent, but she also had a few facts in her pocket that were damn accurate, and she stuck with them, and she continued to repeat them and ask about those facts. So it doesn't take people like Ginger even at first would come to someone like me and say, well, what else can I do? I mean, you're a specialist. Like, no, like I don't deserve, none of the specialists got here because we know something more. We just learned it quicker, and we just were passionate about it. You were passionate growing up about these issues, I can imagine. So passionate people end up becoming the political specialists, but it's not fair. It's not like it's because they earned a degree somewhere. In fact, when I meet someone who says they have a degree in political administration, I laugh. I'm like, oh, you poor man, you poor gal, you went to school for that. You know, it's not something that you really can learn. It's more something that you just acquire through passion and persistence. Everyone can do it.
It's on the job training. You have to have the experience, and you have to do it by, first of all, having the boldness just to go in there, know that you have a right, you have a license to go and talk to your representative about whatever issue that's you find to be a priority in your life.
That's right. Well, I mean, give me an example. I mean, I've mentioned education. Throw out something else. Like, let's maybe talk healthcare. I can give you some
healthcare, transportation, border security. There's a myriad of them.
I've covered them all. Let me give you two examples in border security and healthcare in the state of Texas that I personally impacted in the last 3 years, and that one of them was this year. Okay, we'll start with border security. I sent a threat assessment report, which I learned how to write because I have retired friends in the FBI. I asked them. You can also find this out from many of your retired buddies in the Army or Marine Corps. All right. They also have a similar format, and it's 2 or 3 pages. If you get information like a tip on, say, some folks are coming from the Congo, like I did, and I had high-level tips, all right, from D.C. Someone called me. They said, John, you know McClure down here, the DPS people. Can you just put this in front of some people that can probably get DPS on this? Turns out we stopped a massive, potential pandemic in the state of Texas just because I wasn't too lazy to write this 3-page thing. I wasn't sure if it was accurate. They checked it. Turns out it was. They had people about to come into the United States who were worse than any kind of biochemical attack you could imagine. You can do more damage with a few prostitutes, in strategic places than you can do with the worst bombs. So let me just say, Alan Fletcher, former state rep, big guy behind DPS, he helped facilitate it, and it got to Steve McCraw, it got to the right people. That happened this year, and it didn't take an expert. It didn't. It just took someone who got the message, passed it along. I mean, who else can do that on this call? I bet about, a bajillion people here can.
Nice. Yeah, really. John, there's a question from Clint in the chat room, and we'll get back to what to do once you get underneath the pink dome in here.
But, clean Austin up. Clint, good luck.
Yeah, what are some of those hidden taxes? Just a few examples. Trying to learn as much as I can.
Hotel fees. In Houston and Austin, they have a hotel tax. I forget what the actual acronym stands for. You have flooding, watershed taxes that don't ever actually get, what's the word? They don't ever get dedicated to cleaning up the retention ponds and making sure that we don't have what happened with Harvey in Houston, where I-10 had to be shut down by the Army Corps of Engineers. Or, for those who live in Houston, who knows about, the not Montrose area, but some of the nicer areas in and around River Oaks there. A lot of places that shouldn't have flooded got flooded that were covered under the 100-year flood plan because those taxes, those hidden taxes, are slush funds for, every corrupt mayor and, payoff that they want to direct it towards. And there's so little accountability. That's just city. Okay.
Marie says abatement are a huge hidden tax as well. The tax incentives by the corporations that the consumer and taxpayer ends up paying for.
What's her name?
That's Marie.
Marie, thank you for reminding me about that. That's huge. So, and TERS, these kind of quasi-regulatory bodies that too can actually affect cost of living. You got to look at all the ways, like property taxes. Who on this call, I bet, and I'm going to get blown up, watch, who on this call thinks that with a constitutional guarantee of property, that's supposed to be unimpeachable, that we should be paying rent on property we already 100% own in one of the freest states in the union? I don't think so. Maybe I'm just Puritan.
There is no private property until the property tax is repealed and prohibited. Because
that's right.
And I think that's a fundamental reason why the government believes they can tell you what to do with your property anytime, anywhere. It belongs to them anyway. They can take it.
It's why Texas is far from an ownership state. And I know we pride ourselves on that image. But the fact is, until that is repealed, we're not a stakeholder state right now. We are a venture capital state where everybody can come in, invest, jack it up, plunder it, and then shut it down. And that benefits us in booms. But guys, remember 2008? Remember 2001? Remember 1990? Remember 83? Remember, okay, these recessions hit Texas just as hard sometimes, if not more hard, because we took all of the short-term gain. And that's not an ownership state. So healthcare, we want to talk about that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Who here knows, please ping me, I'm seeing your messages. Who here knows that the Republican House Ways and Means Chair, Kevin Brady, all right, several years back, 2 years ago, had actually presided over an ACA, Affordable Health Care Act modification that gutted cancer pre-screening like CT scans, MRIs for seniors. Who here knows that? Okay, that happened. It was actually in law. It had gone into effect, and seniors like my grandma, like all of our elderly family, they were going to face something called hospital readmission caps for cancer pre-screening. That's just to find out if you might have a lump, all right? They were going to get capped at like 1 or 2. It's insane. It's worse than Canada if they had done that. I went in there, pissed off. Let's just say I had a real intense conversation with the congressman. After one of his campaign benefits, I laid out the benefits to him that were obvious of fixing that. And I'm sure it was an oversight. These guys have staff that handle a lot of this. Stuff just gets rifled on through. But that's why citizens have so much power if they're just curious.
John, and that's a situation where you're not even going to their office.
Right.
It's a social opportunity. Oh, looky here. Look who's here. I've had this on my mind, and I have a right to approach you.
Right.
You are on duty 24/7. You're on duty whenever you walk outside of the threshold of your domicile.
Sure. Now, to full disclosure, I had the American Radiology Technician, I think, Association. They had contacted me, and they had definitely retained me to look into it, so I wouldn't have known about it either. You know, that's how big this Frankenstein monster of a 1,000-page bill was. But still, I acted on it. And any citizen could have stumbled on that just with some reading. So it doesn't take a specialist. It doesn't take a consultant. It doesn't take even guys behind microphones. It just takes us doing what we do when we're bored, which is getting on Drudge, getting on The Blaze, getting on Breitbart, WorldNet Daily. You can go on Newsmax, Daily Caller, my byline. That is something that everyone can do, is stay informed.
John, do you advocate for the citizen lobbyist to hone in on one specialty, one topic? Is it really good to be an aficionado on?
No, it's good to
cover all bases.
No, it's good to be where you actually care, and there's always going to be someone else who cares more about something else. So what you do, it's kind of like I run my own business, and it ebbs and flows. I subcontract out sometimes when it's good. I can have anywhere from 15 employees to just me, But from running a business, I can tell you that I don't like to hire people who are really working on their 3 or their 2. I like to hire people who are really good at their 10 and who partner with somebody and know that they need to delegate their 2, their 1, their 3. And we don't want people who go, oh, there's no I in team. We want people to know their I, but also be able to work with a team to actually, cover those bases where they're not as strong. So the same goes with politics, okay? When you're really passionate, say, about healthcare or about border security or education, you focus on that. And then you find people, okay, who are educated and passionate about the other things, and you work together.
When you're, John, let's get specifically to the Capitol. First and foremost, anybody can pretty much walk in. You go through security screening.
Yes.
If you're licensed as such to carry your firearm, you can even walk in the Capitol with your firearm. So it may be an imposing building, the Pink Dome, but once again, as a citizen of Texas, once the second week of January comes around, or even before then, they actually start meeting before then. They actually start gathering up in Austin at the Capitol even before then. You can
Oh, you can move in and out of there like,
it's really better. It's really better to go before like sort of opening day, because the first day of the session is just a madhouse.
Well, and everybody's there when they're there before.
Everybody is there.
State reps, okay? State reps are your best friends, and they're eager to please, and they're new, they're fresh, and you know what that means? That means they haven't had time to get their head up there, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the state senators, I know a lot of great, very humble, and very deservedly respected state senators like Donna Campbell. Donna Campbell has worked with our organization quite a bit. She doesn't always hit the mark exactly, and that's just because busy people, but she does care about this issue, and she does a lot. So she's a good example of a state senator that's the exception. But there are a lot of state reps who are going to be accessible to you. They're not going to require you to schedule appointments. It's luck of the draw. And if you're not able to get a meeting with your specific state rep, go to some of the neighboring constituencies. They're right across the hall usually. Like Brandon Creighton and Briscoe Kane, great guys, and they do a lot of cross pollination, and they're also both very personable, and they'll help you connect with your state rep. There's no animosity for someone when they come in and they talk to their servant, their employee, because that's who these guys are. I don't want to be crude or crass, but you're their boss. You're paying them. They're your employee. It's it's kind of like why pay for housekeeping? Why pay for a driver? Why pay for these things if when you get there they go, I don't feel like driving today, or we're out of Fabuloso. That's not something you would pay for, right? Well, why would you pay upwards of $100,000, again, all the taxes together, a year in some cases, if when you get there, they say, well, I got to go out to a lunch with a really high power lobbyist who's going to, buy me stuff. Well, you would go, well, no, screw that. You're going to see me, right? Few state reps have lost their shirts recently, and I helped them lose their shirts for that exact reason. People sometimes lose touch, but you can be in touch, and that's a choice you can make. Am I missing questions here? Are there any questions, Claver, that I need to get?
I'm sort of keeping track of it, John. Not really any new ones, but
nice comment here on Brady and Babin. That's true. Babin's a little bit better, but yes, all these guys at some point have to compromise or feel like they do, and that's the real tragedy.
John, let's talk about time frame. I would suggest that when one is going to be a citizen lobbyist, going to go up there, that they get it done in the real first 30 days of the session. Now, that doesn't mean throughout the 140 days that they don't need to be up there. They don't need to be up there for committee hearings.
So you want the mechanics, right?
Well, I mean, what I would suggest is that in those first 30 days, they can't really do anything. You don't have any committee assignments for about 3 weeks. They can't present any legislation. They really are just kind of backslapping up there and getting to know each other and what their strategies are going to be and what bills that they're trying to get people to sign on. This is the perfect time, right when the gavel goes down to open the session. Right. That's the time to be on them like a mad dog on red meat.
Especially if you've studied the last session and if you're carrying things forward, which is always the case for me and others like Daniel. We've got bills and or concepts for legislation, and we have draft, sometimes legislation prepared that we're already coordinating with people on just because it failed last session or because we learned from last session and we adapted and we've got, co-sponsor. That kind of thing isn't that hard. In fact, funny story, the C-Scope, I go back to C-Scope education because it was one of the most crazy, intense, long, lasted for 2 years getting rid of this thing, arduous fights that I've ever seen in the state capitol. And the funniest part of it was at the tail end when one of my friends, Steve Toth, he's a good friend of TNM, he was pushing a bill forward. And I think if I recall, the lieutenant governor at the time, Dan Patrick, had just worked out some sort of, arrangement to plea bargain these guys so that they would just back out gracefully and would save us all the headache. Well, Toth and Patrick hadn't communicated. So there was about something like a John Wayne showdown there. It was like high noon. And, you see stuff like that. And it's one of the cool things about really being at the scene of these votes and at the scene of the process happening in front of you. You get to see stuff that, frankly, it makes great dinner conversation later.
John Griffin is the communications director for the Texas Nationalist Movement. And John, are you looking at some of the?
I sure am. Do you have any that you'd flag for me? Because there's they always pile up here. Let's see.
Well, Regina says, thank you for taking the taboo out of working with the the LEGE, Texas Legislative Session. I believe the first step is the hardest step. And a suggestion, and that's one of the things that we were really trying to get going here on this particular session, this particular conversation with John, is to take the taboo out, take this thought of fearsomeness out of the Capitol. Yes, you can approach these guys.
Go at your own pace.
Be prepared. Don't go in there half-stepping.
Don't let them make you feel like you're green or like, you don't know what they know because they're behind oak paneled doors that are 7 feet tall. Don't let them make you feel like that because they have a bottle of brandy someone gave them in a nice decanter and they're walking around doing shit with it. Don't be intimidated because a lot of these folks are just adjusted to the pace of this lifestyle that exists when they're in session. And that's not something that is as bad here in the Lone Star State, thanks to, limits on what state reps and state senators can take home. We just give them stipends. We don't give them enough to actually make it a career. So they have to have an independent income source. That's a bonus, but people still find ways to, enrich themselves in the state legislature. So what you want to do is definitely don't feel intimidated, because I guarantee you, they don't know half of what they need to know just to get a bill out of committee. They have a bunch of policy wonks and young guys running around, with pocket protectors helping them with that.
Yeah, the chief of staff, legislative staff.
Oh, chief of staff are great usually, but there's a lot of a lot of young guys that went to school for different things, legal stuff. You gotta actually know how to put a bill together. So don't ever be intimidated. Is one of my biggest pieces.
You can sort of get a head start on even before they select the Speaker of the House, or on the Speaker of the House, because John, I
got a question here.
Okay, there's a pre-filing period. So even before they get there, you can kind of go to the Texas Leg website, see what bills are filed, and kind of know where the entire session is going.
One thing, Claver, Regina Ross, great comment. Let me go ahead and read the last part of your comment here. Once you get one under your belt, meaning state legislators, then it gets so much easier, she says. It's important to be professional when visiting the reps and senators and, quite frankly, their staff. Trust me, she says, when I say the gatekeepers need to be your friends. Let me stop there. That's true. The gatekeepers do at least need to be friendly with you, but they should not stop you. If you actually have something to discuss with your lawmaker, I've done this a bunch of times. Now I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, preacher's kid. I also grew up like Claver around politics. So I can be pretty mean and, let's just say, resourceful. But that doesn't mean that you can't actually see your lawmaker and have the talk you need to have and have the accountability that you need to feel like you have with your state rep or your state senator. So let me just echo Regina, though, and say try to reach out through the normal channels, call the main switchboard, call their extensions, set up a time to speak with them. It's usually very friendly, but also hang around. Grab lunch, at the Capitol Plaza. I don't mean the good one. It's not the Capitol Grill we like, but hang around, actually have a bite where these folks eat during the day, and just drop in these offices. A lot of times their staff are really bored or they're really getting stir crazy, and they love a friendly face. They love somebody to shoot the breeze with. So,
question from Tom.
Yeah,
he says.
And it's Karen.
Right. He says, I would, at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button. He says, he wants to know how to go to Austin, stay a month, and go every day to the Capitol. However, I would like to be a part of, let's say, a group of people going to push legislation and ideas. How does one do this? It's a good question.
Okay, well, it depends on the issue, and it depends on the topic. Okay, what the focus. Like I've gone with some really nice moms and ladies to the legislature, and we've carpooled from Houston back when I was based there, and that was for traditional marriage. That was for pro-life causes. You'll always find if you're involved in your church, or if you're involved in your local party, that's the biggest thing you can do, is show up at Dallas County, Harris County, Travis County, Williamson County GOP meetings with precinct chairs, all the stuff that bores most people. Well, that's where you meet the folks who actually do this, not because they're professionals, because they're passionate. They're passionate citizens. How much more passionate? Yeah. How much more passionate can you get than a precinct chair? That's a lot of work for nothing, for no monetary gain. That's very, very intense stuff.
A partisan office holder elected to advance the party agenda.
Right, but not for they're not salaried. They're not paid.
Right, exactly.
These are just people that care. So you do really good if you start there. Claver, anything to add?
No, you're there. But the whole idea of starting a group, okay, if you have a set of people that locally or from around the state, because network
the organization part, that'll come.
Organizational part. I mean, knowing people that'll come from the connections that you make. Just getting out there, getting off the sofa, and going to the precinct or to the county party meeting or the Republican Women's Club.
Ask Michael Quinn Sullivan how Empower Texans started. It wasn't because he said, "I'm going to start a PAC and a nonprofit." I mean, this guy was just engaged. Okay, and there's a network that develops around you of people in anything nowadays, especially because we're so connected. I mean, look at this. We're having a meeting, okay, across time and space here. All right, so there's all kinds of organizations that get started because of the organic passion and interest of you and maybe a handful of other friends that you were able to talk to about something. And
yeah. Can I try to get to Tom's question about how to do this? Because
I don't know if I'm seeing them all, so please shoot them over to me.
Oh yeah, Tom, one of the things, there's all types of ways to organize. So let's say you get to the 5, 6, 7 people that are interested in one or two issues, and you do want to go to Austin and you want to work it for 2 weeks, a month, to save money, let's say. During the legislative session, there's houses that people rent out, home away, or
these in Austin are great.
Yeah, well, I like home away. You can get some really nice deals, and you can stay in, and the food isn't expensive. Well, you can get your own food just like you're living away from.
That's right.
Housing is the most important thing, and once you're there in Austin, getting to the Capitol, once the morning commute is over.
Everything's close together.
Yeah, everything's close together. So it's, as far as keeping the cost down, being able to share the cost, you can go get a 2, 3, 4 bedroom house. You can get a pretty nice sized house. Right. Everybody is sharing the cost. It certainly breaks down less than a hotel room.
I recommend Airbnbs, and I'm biased, okay, but all around the country I've gone doing work, in this field. And I've never been disappointed when I need to get started. Like in D.C., for example, Austin and D.C., I had to rebuild, all right? I had to reinvent professionally. And when I did that, there were great, fully furnished, beautiful spaces, full spaces, all right? Not shared, not someone. These are great places to stay. The value is unbelievable. If you're used to hotels, you'll get off them real quick, even those 5 stars. Because the quality of a lot of the B&Bs here in Austin, they're geared towards people who are here to wine and dine, to do these types of things professionally. So you're going to benefit from the unit value that happens because of all that. Whenever you go to a capital city, you're in one of the best places for value. So check Airbnb out.
So the point is, though, Tom, there's ways to do it. Once again, it's a preparation issue. Just like you're prepping to be a lobbyist and to come to your state rep or your state senator and talk to them about the issue that you're concerned about. It's just preparation, all the necessities of life, the budgeting. If you have a group of 3 or 4 or 5, yeah, that cuts the cost down a lot.
Claver, you play basketball?
No.
Okay, you play. What's your sport, man? Because I'm a basketball guy.
Auto racing.
Okay, well, that's not a very involved sport. Perfectly. So that's not really going to make my point. So thanks for making it difficult. But let me go ahead and skip ahead.
I took another. Are you talking about one
sports for Tom here? Sports are a great way to view this, because when you get psyched up, okay, to play a game of backyard football or whatever, you got to get a little psyched. You got to get the adrenaline pumping, do some wind sprints, whatever. You're not going to hit an office of a state lawmaker cold just because you're their boss and because you're the guy that pays their bill. That's not how you should view it either. So in that sense, Kara, I believe, I thought it was Regina, but Kara had a great point too, which is definitely try to approach this the way you would any job interview or any meeting with somebody whose respect you want. Not because you need their permission, because you want their cooperation. And those are two very different things.
John, Regina is extremely active tonight in the meeting, which is just fine with us. Everybody should be active. In the question box, she has, in your professional opinion, that would be you, John. In your professional opinion, since both of you have spent, I don't know why she put both, so both of you have spent many years walking the halls, what is the best, all caps, best verbiage when trying to book a face-to-face with the legislators?
Okay, this is all the same stuff you would use from HR 101 when you're trying to get a job. Phrasing, okay, at the end of emails, like looking forward to next steps, making sure you send a thank you email, okay, right after you meet with them. Definitely use phrases like reach out. Make sure you, here's a great tip, okay? Here's the biggest secret you can use to get almost 99.999% successful access to these people every time. You ready?
Okay. Ready.
All right. What you do is you have a referral from another good old buddy and another lawmaker and or another public official that they owe something to and or greatly admire. And you have that name in your subject line. People these people have thousands of emails a day, okay? They're scanning. They're going, oh, I recognize that name or that word or that thing that I care about. So just like you, I mean, what do you do when you look at your inbox? Do you go, well, hey, that's PBS there. I need to re-up. No, you really pretty much are annoyed most of the time you're in your inbox probably. I know I am.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, right? So what you want to do is think like that. Think like you are the person sitting in that office reading those emails. What would you need to see? So I always have somebody in the referral, in that capacity in the subject line. Like so-and-so suggested I reach out. That's all you need to put in your subject. The name of the person suggested I reach out. Nothing more, okay? You lead with the name. That will get you meetings. And at the very least, it'll get you phone calls, probably personalized phone calls from these folks. And yes, there's another step involved. You actually have to respond to them when they reach out. Yeah, you have to go, oh my God, you can't get white knuckled. These aren't celebrities. They're people you put there and they wear nice suits and they have to be in a nice place a lot. That's different than these people being untouchable or different from you.
John, do you have to stay within your boundaries? In other words, only talk to the ones that they can consider to be, you can be considered their constituent, that you live in their district? Because I've heard of those that have said the first thing, let's say if they call in, because people always say, call your representative, call your representative. This is very different. We're talking about actually going, having a face-to-face, having a dialogue with them, trying to persuade them to do the will of the people.
You're going to love my answer.
So, I mean, it's a whole lot different when the staffer on the other end picks the phone up and asks, well, are you a constituent? Or the legislator says, are you a constituent? What's your answer to that?
Claver, how many cell phones do you get from state reps when you walk a room with state reps in it?
Well, they know who I am. I may get a few.
Well, forget that. Forget that. When you were starting out and you just were friendly and you were just shaking people's hands and making
A
conversation.
few of them would, yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Cell phone, yeah.
Now,
That's true.
I'm gonna sound like a jerk here, folks, but this works too. Okay. Anybody who's ever had the secretary dance done to them when they've been booked with the CEO of a company for like a luncheon and the secretary doesn't know or they weren't briefed and they keep pulling the runaround. Has anybody had that happen? I'm sorry, they're at lunch, and they just texted you. Well, what you do then is you text them. You do top down. Okay. It's called top down referral from the boss. All right. That eliminates, it's not like you're going around. Okay. Their assistants. It's just that you had a personal connection and already had an open line of communication with their boss. So you do both. You reach out to their staff, you CC their boss, you message their boss on the private line of communication they've possibly given you. Now, that's if you're real lucky and if you're just, a likable person. Some people have what I call resting douche face, and I have that sometimes. And it's where people think I'm mad at them, and I'm not. So what you got to do is not depend so much on the social element and just depend on persistence. Anybody can continue to follow up. And as long as you're cordial, as long as you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, there's no reason that you're not going to get that meeting.
Do you have to be perfect? Do you have to worry about the grammar in the email?
Maybe it's just I'm a bull in the china shop, and usually things work out. The storm usually calms down. Enough people hate me now on both sides of the party where I think that means I probably stood for some stuff and did the right thing a few times. If you're hated, that widely, but still, what you need to do is try not to mix your spheres of influence. Try not to have worlds collide. All right. So you don't want to be too fast and loose on your social issue agenda if that clashes with people you need to help you on, say, oil exploration, on freeing up regulation so that, Texas Railroad Commission, it sounds stupid, but they do all the energy regulation in the state. Okay. I've had a lot of contact with these guys, with these commissioners, and these folks can make or break the Texas energy sector without help from the EPA. All right. Just by being stupid or being informed. And they're usually from the oil industry, but sometimes they're just wonks who knew how to talk a good game. It's in those moments that you actually want to have not mixed your spheres too much. So that's some advice I can give you, is try not to pull a George Costanza from Seinfeld where the worlds are colliding. If anybody's ever seen that episode.
John, now, how we're talking about being legislators being accessible. How about in the executive branch? Can you get that meeting with the railroad commissioner? Can you get that meeting with the AG? Can you get that meeting with the Secretary of State?
That's another presentation, and we can schedule one of those. What's the non-X-rated way to put it? That's just having chutzpah. That's when you actually get close enough to these people and aren't starstruck and just are, relational. That's when you actually just care about people and just like interacting with folks. And you're able to kind of suspend. It's kind of like when you're in a movie and you suspend disbelief. There's a level of operation you have to go into because some of these folks, like Dan Patrick, I don't abuse my relationship with him. He had to tell me a while back, John, you're calling me too much. He's like, I love you, man, but
that's where I was going to go with that, John. What's too much? Do you get to the point?
They'll tell you.
Them to the point until they tell you, hey, you need to back off.
And then if they're involved, like, see, Dan's above board. He's a great guy. He's ethically clean. He does what he says he's going to do for the most part. Outside of procedural blockages. There are great public servants like that who I can honestly say, and I haven't been paid by his campaign in 3 years. So I'm saying this independently. The man doesn't disappoint on policy. Like when he's alerted to, say, the Alamo, for example, and we've got more coming on that, folks. Don't think we dropped the ball. Okay. Jerry, I think, is on this call today or is on one of them here. Jerry really helped me when I wanted to testify on this issue. He spot checked my report to the committee, Senate Finance Committee, to make sure I wasn't inaccurate about general land office parlance and, protocols, things that I wouldn't have known as a layperson. So sometimes go to these people and ask for their expertise. They love that. These are folks that clearly love this job they've done, or they wouldn't have done it. That, or they became passionate about it. It's like you learn to love. So regardless, these folks like being asked about what they know. It's not insulting to them. It's not bothersome to them. They're probably happy that someone asked them about something they care about. So
yeah, Regina was making a good point here in the chat that you also need to be a good listener. You should expect that they listen to what you have to say, but it is supposed to be a conversation and not a lecture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if you yeah, okay, if you're a Cindy Sheehan, mom's against war, and you're reliving your youth from the late 60s, and you're reliving Woodstock, and you're just throwing yourself at people and screaming at them, if you're going Antifa on them, probably not the best approach. If you're Trump tweeting at them, and I love the president, but can we all just agree that those thumbs are about as dangerous as the nuclear football? Come on, those are some dangerous Twitter thumbs right there. So if you're approaching people like that at all in your personal life, you're probably not going to get much warmth or receptiveness from the policymakers. And a lot of them, it's not because they're elitist. It's because you're rude or you've been rude without realizing it. I've done it. I'm, like I said, I've been a bull in a china shop and had to learn from my mistakes. So any other questions? I see a few here. Let's see. You see any interesting ones? Claver, I'm looking.
I think we covered those. But John, there was, I'm looking for some sign. I don't know if you can necessarily hear it. A few years ago, former Texas GOP chairman Tom McClure really made some news when this.
I'm just going to be uncensored on this. Is that cool?
That's fine, man.
All right, yeah.
This isn't FCC regulated.
No, it's no statute of limitations on this. Come on.
Yeah, he said something that was I'm not going to take the risk and play it. Plus, it's too long.
Oh, take the risk.
He said you have to carry the water for these guys. Now, this is at a Tea Party meeting of Tea Party influencers, and they're not necessarily in favor of carrying the water for any elected.
It's an arbitrary thing. See, Greg Abbott is elegant. He's an elegant and gentlemanly, statesman-like figure in Texas politics, but he is not a guy who will carry water for people who are doing bad things and who are violating the platform and don't deserve the water to be carried. There's a difference between, and this is where guys like McClure, they may be well-intentioned. Okay, a lot of roads to hell are paved with good intentions. All right, I want to point out that people that confuse elegance and being a gentleman with compromising on essential principles. Okay, not things like how we get there. We're both in the car driving towards a destination. How are we going to get there? Let's horse trade. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about essential principles that we have thought valuable enough to all put in our platform. When a chairman of a state or national party starts carrying water for any interest or any person, okay, that does not actually believe that essential principles exist and believe that things are subjective and that values are situational, well, that ripples through everything. You can't, it's kind of like trust in business. We have contracts, yeah. But in America, what makes it such a great place to do business and invest? Because we have a Judeo-Christian ethic at the backdrop, even though people don't want to admit it, and that created a culture of trust. We get pissed if someone violates our trust, don't we? Well, that's not something you can take for granted a lot of places. Go to France, go to an open market and see how people horse trade there and how people take advantage. There's no other country like America when it comes to the assumption of trust and the assumption that will guide everything. So McClure, just from a personal standpoint, I didn't favor his leadership for the party just because he seemed to carry a lot of water too many times for too many people who didn't even think they were really Republicans.
Well, that's why you earned the nickname around here, the Water Boy, Tom the Water Boy McClure.
Is that his nickname?
That's yeah,
I used to
because we
call it
captured
the
that
counter.
audio.
I used to
We
call it the bean counter because of the accounting, but that's kind of lazy.
yeah, we caught that audio at a Tea Party meeting where you actually said you will get more done if you carry water for these guys. If you're confrontational at all, if you're storming their offices, if
Tell
you're
that to all the great
outside.
management accountants at Anderson when they carried water for their bosses on Enron. A lot of people got blackballed who didn't actually take part in the cooking of the books. And, that's an example of carrying water not being advisable. Carrying water is an arbitrary standard of interaction. It's not actually a good idea. Someone that says carrying water, I would stay a good distance away from them or you'll get wet.
I mean, in essence, what you're saying, John, is you're going to meet with legislators who are not going to agree with your agenda. And you want to be, although you may have to be confrontational, that doesn't mean it has to be a
Don't burn
knock
bridges.
drag out. You want to be, you want to use decorum. You want to be diplomatic.
Civility. Look,
yeah, you want to be a statesman or a stateswoman. It's okay to get your point across without yanking them by the trachea.
Well, look, let's look at a good example of somebody who I disagree with on a lot of policy matters, but who's very good at making friends everywhere. Okay, his name is Joe Straus, and the man, I'm diametrically opposed to a lot of his policy views. Okay, but no one would deny that Joe Straus was liked by a lot of people and was very good at personal interaction. And that's why sometimes people throw up their hands. They can't imagine how something didn't get done or something got blocked in a session. And it was the personal dimension that sometimes legislators get taken in by it. They don't even realize that they've been had, I guess is too strong a word. It's personal. It's this. It's what we're doing right now. It's a conversation. And the second we start realizing that, we have way more power than people who are throwing rocks or like, the SB 5 abortion debate a few years back. Remember the poo flingers? DPS caught them before the feces hit the speaker. Mm-hmm. Thank God. But this is the kind of stuff we're not. We don't want to be that. We've already got the Texas independence thing around our necks, and we already have to explain that in 30 seconds or less. Don't make it harder for yourself.
I find it amazing that you brought up the example of Joe Straus, because I can cite examples where just the quality that he possesses that you spoke about, he was able to really take down a lot of political opposition, even Tea Party opposition. He'd go out and have dinner with them. Before you know it, the Tea Party didn't even exist anymore. That's why it's never really a strong Austin Tea Party. He met with the organizers, persuaded them, convinced them that he
Tom
was
DeLay, when he was the House Majority Leader, he was called the Hammer. But let me tell you something. Tom is a very nice man, and he's a likable man. And when you actually get close to Tom, you realize his Christian faith is actually genuine, something you really can't fake. That you have folks like Joe Biden that'll come out. No offense, Joe, but come out and they'll say things like my faith tradition. That's a big clue to me that they didn't go to church much. Okay. Yeah. But someone like Tom, the Hammer seems to be the wrong moniker for Tom, because he's so, yes, he can ball bust and he can push things through, but Tom is not first and foremost the wielder of a sword. Tom is first and foremost a very likable and engaging personality. And we don't have to be, we don't have to be Laura Ingraham and Colt. Better if you're not, actually. We don't have to be, a talking head in order to actually get something done. Young guys, they think when they enter the workplace, they kind of have to be jerks to get stuff done. Not true. Two different things. Being a jerk has nothing to do with being efficient or being successful. Same thing on a personal level in politics. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be persistent.
Good question again from Marie. How do you suggest I find out what my legislators owe other legislators?
Oh, now this is where it gets trickier. And there are a lot of great websites that help with this now. Texas Trib is not one of them. They will show you basic contributions and they'll show you their state filings, okay? But they're not going to show you things like dark money, like who's donating to them through a body and that filters it through 2 more bodies. There are websites. In fact, I think I might have a few I can send to the list here after we're done, but I might actually be able to get one while we're on. And basically, all of these sites now draw information from, I found things like hotel stay expenses, lavish, crazy spa charges at 5-star hotels by freshman congressmen in D.C. who were there for less, than a year. And they're not even campaigning, all right? And they're charging their campaign account, Sometimes, like, it can be upwards of, 50,000 in a single year. And it's stuff like that it's good to be able to find. So I would definitely recommend just Googling, FEC, Google Texas, the ethics body in Texas is, I've used it myself.
Texas Ethics Commission.
Right, of course. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I didn't have lunch. Anyway, that is what you do. You start there, and you'd be amazed at how much stuff is just there. It's hiding in plain sight. It's just they know that it's so dang.
And they have lawyers, on staff too to ask questions about certain legal matters.
Trey Blocker, like Kayla, I'm going to throw out a name. I'm not going to get in trouble, but Trey's a prominent lobbyist. I don't know him personally. I don't really like what I know. And what I know is that he was slinging mud at Sid. Love or hate Sid. Okay, Sid was actually compliant on his ethics stuff. And Trey Blocker was still receiving money from Monsanto as a lobbyist through his campaign term. And they tripled his salary when he decided to run. Nothing suspicious there. Guess where I got that info? I didn't pay a special subscription, folks. I went to the Texas Ethics Commission and just dug through and was annoyed for a few hours and looked at every year and every single person that paid Trey, and I saw some really big red flags there. You're not going to find stuff because you're special or you have access. You're going to find stuff because you're just patient.
I don't know if you've had any experience with State Representative Doc Anderson. I haven't had a lot of interaction.
No, actually.
Yeah, Clint wanted to know if you had any thoughts on him at all. He's not, I wouldn't exactly call him liberty driven. I may be able to pull up his Raging Elephants Radio Liberty score real quick, but he's not exactly what you would call a conservative or an ultra conservative. He's your basic down the middle type of rhino.
Well, I'll tell you who I had, where I cut my teeth on radio and TV coming up was Fox 26 in Houston with Isaiah Carey, a lot with Isaiah. Then I did a lot with Matt Patrick before he died. Rest in peace, Matt. Sam Malone was a huge mentor for me at The Answer 1070. And Sam actually, I would credit almost fully with helping develop me as a radio talent and as a media contributor. So half the stuff I do now on international TV, on local and all that I can attribute to nice guys who were willing to just answer some questions. They took time out of their day they didn't have to take. They let me fly co-pilot on some shows. They showed me the ropes. Patience from people that you have been patient enough to show an interest in beyond just, hey, they can do something for me. I mean, be around, but don't be around in a way that is needy and or extractionist. And I know that's hard when you're eager and when you're passionate about an issue and you just want to make a difference. And that's a very hard thing to manage because they smell alike to people at their level. They can smell like desperation and or profiteering or, some monetary sniffing. But what you want to do is just genuinely continue to show up, not ask anything for it, and just be around, be conversational, like Claver said.
Clint, just real quickly for you, man, I pulled up the Raging Elephants Radio Liberty Scorecard average for the last legislative session for 2015 and 2017. And Doc Anderson's RER score is a 64 out of a possible 100. So there you have it. And that's not exactly you would want your children to bring home from school, I don't think, as far as a grade is concerned. Let's check and see if there's any more questions. We're at the top of the hour now, John. Let's see if there's any more questions. If not, I would like for you to wrap things up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
thank
sure.
everybody for coming.
Have I missed anybody here, Claver? I've been looking through and scanning, but I'm a guy, so that means multitasking left me long.
We're lacking. We're lacking.
Yeah, we are. Sorry, women. It's harder for us, men. Okay, let's see here. So I've got an electrician. I've got Messner. He's got a nice long comment here. He says he would not be a good candidate to be a lobbyist. Good news. You don't need to be one. In fact, most of the people that call themselves lobbyists just have to now because they made enough money to have to register. In fact, I guarantee most of those people wish they didn't have to call themselves lobbyists. So you're not doing anything different. You're just not doing it for money. You have a real job. Be thankful you have a real job, Tom.
Can I use one example of a lady that I know that I just absolutely adore? She's a Raging Elephants radio contributor. Her name is Terry Hall. She has an organization called Texas Turf, TURF, and I think
I've heard of Terry, yeah.
Terry is fantastic. I would suggest anyone to go to their website, Texas Turf. She is the foremost expert when it comes to transportation issues, liberty movement level here in the state of Texas. She's awesome. And she's expanded to civil asset forfeiture and eminent domain issues
Terry,
as well.
This is a good thing. I'm glad you brought Terry up because
she's a mother of 11. I mean, mother of 10. She is a mother of 10, homeschools.
Does she know Briscoe?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Are you kidding?
Well,
she's one of the most connected people.
All right. I bet you I met Terry. I bet we actually worked on this together and didn't know it, Claver. Briscoe had me digging on Wayne Smith, his second time running. He was a three-term incumbent, folks. Three-term. Okay, that's somebody you don't touch unless you're really confident. And your name's Briscoe and your ancestor was in the Texas Declaration of Independence. But what we did is we realized that he was actually getting graft, legal money. He was illegally profiting, from companies that he owned that were receiving state contracts, and a lot of them. And he was doing it shamelessly. And he was doing it just hoping no one was curious enough to check. And that's where citizens come in. You think you need to be a lobbyist to have just stumbled on that? No. You just have to actually follow a trail or go, hey, I wonder if my state rep Wayne Smith is actually, clean. You know how long that takes to find out? Sometimes 15 minutes. Find out which companies are registered to them. Look DBAs. It's a few Googles, folks. It's the internet age.
You would be surprised at the amount of information that's out there, and it doesn't take a computer to do the analysis.
Right.
All you need is a calculator and a government school level of education on mathematics, and you can get the job done.
Sometimes not even the math. I'm horrible at math, and I didn't even suffer through Obama's new math either. I struggle. I had C's, mostly. I had A's and everything else, but math. Gosh, you could hit me in the head. I still wouldn't.
You and me both. Yeah.
Jeez. So you don't need to know math even, folks. You just need to know when a number looks bigger than it should and is going to a place that it shouldn't.
John, any last thoughts from you, man?
Last thoughts, yes.
You've been absolutely comprehensive. I
feel like I never touch on enough, and I'm sorry about that, folks. It's just a big topic, but
no, John, I think you really covered it. Folks should understand that they ought to be able to go in there. That it should be something that shouldn't be. It shouldn't be mysterious. It shouldn't be fearsome. You do have a right as a citizen, as a taxpayer, to walk into any government building, to any public servant, and have a conversation with them with decorum, with civility about whatever your issues. And don't be afraid to go pat them on the back when they're doing the right thing. You'll probably get more done when you have something that they're doing wrong.
And look, I've had this happen a lot of times. Don't let these folks give you that stare, like that all-knowing, like, gosh, you know so little about how things work, you little peon.
The Yoda stare.
Because guess what? That stare is usually concealing a total lack of knowledge about half the crap they're supposed to know. So what you do is just push past that stare. Stay polite, make them be the jerk if it ever happens, but you continue to just ask the questions,
I think Regina said it, just you have to go do it. If you're concerned about it,
Zig Ziglar.
Just do the courageous thing. If you got butterflies, whenever you do something righteous and holy, you're supposed to have butterflies.
Oh, that's right.
When you're doing something right, you're supposed to have a little nerves.
But you know what? And that's what I'm going to end on, folks. I don't know how many of you are believers out there, but as a believer, there's something that's always true in my life that I've noticed, and that's that God or whatever's up there, he uses imperfect, broken, and small people to intimidate and shame big, wise, wealthy people, okay? The people with the power are usually the people that God teaches stuff to. And he doesn't use somebody that's got it all on their resume. He uses somebody that's willing and somebody that'll just keep doing it. And so just keep doing it, folks. Just stay curious, stay passionate.
I think if you remember the Texas Nationalist Movement, if you're on this call, that's a trait that you should have abundance of.
Oh, yeah.
Passion, emotion, stick-to-itiveness, persistent, a go-getter. You're a Texan. That means you're supposed to be on the offensive at all times. Thanks a lot, John Griffing. He is the communications director for the Texas Nationalist Movement. If
Pleasure.
you're on this video conference, the Texas Nationalist Movement Legislative Action Workshop, and you're not a TNM member, TNM.me, TNM.me is the place you want to go. It's only $8.36 a month. I'm a member.
Everybody can afford it, you know?
Yeah, 1836, those magical numbers.
That's right.
That's all it is per month. This is the preeminent organization for the returned Republic of Texas.
You know, we're the ones out there with Jerry and others trying to stop the monument to our dead at the Alamo being torn down, folks. And that's now going to happen short of a miracle. So give what you can. You know, if you can't give a lot, give what you can. Get involved. It's not hard. Guys, the next session for the Legislative Action Workshop is scheduled for tomorrow at 4 p.m. and it's going, put on your Nomex because it's going to be a barn burner. If you're not listening, you're not learning. If you're not linked into the video stream, it's a real shame. George Constantinidis is going to be with us. The topic is going to be Brexit to Texit, turning pressure into electoral success. He's a wonderful story. The strategy he has to share with us is absolutely fascinating and inspiring. In order for you to attend that, you're going to have to check your email for the link. Remember, every link to every session is individual. It's not the same portal. You have to be on the email list. You have to sign up for a seat for each individual session. Of course, it's absolutely free, just like this session is right now. It doesn't cost you anything. You can actually watch it naked. We will never know you did. Hey, Larry King, we don't know what was underneath those suspenders. We absolutely have. Nobody knows what I have on right now underneath my jacket, underneath the microphone. I'm wearing pants, folks. Yeah. I am too. That's good, Clever. I'm so glad. Yeah. Video posted at TNM.me. This video, these two international model faces, John and yours truly, going to be posted at the TNM.me. You want to go there. Everything you need to know about the Texas Nationalist Movement is going to be at the new rebuilt website. It is spectacular. .me is how you get involved. It's going to help you get plugged in way faster too, folks. It's very interactive, very friendly, very user-friendly. It's just brilliant. This is the preeminent organization on the planet for the independence of Texas, and it's well worth your contribution, your volunteerism, and getting plugged in. Some of the nicest, most ardent patriots, believers, those who really understand the principles of life, liberty, and prosperity. These are the people that you're going to find in the TNM. These are the people that you want to network with. Clint, if you want to find some people to go do some lobbying with, start by networking with the TNM. There's no better place to do it. Let's call it advocating and/or engaging. John Griffin is the communications director. Thanks a lot to everybody at the staff of the TNM. Remember, tomorrow, 4 p.m., go to the TNM, to TNM.me/the-law, TNM law, and you will see the entire agenda for the Texas Nationalist Movement Legislative Action Workshop. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks a lot, Daniel. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.